The crystalline spires of the Terran Diplomatic Corps headquarters caught the morning light, sending rainbow refractions across Raven Blackwood's face as he stood before the Council of Five. His dark eyes remained fixed on the holographic display, showing the approaching Zytherian fleet, 15 warships, each capable of reducing Earth's major cities to ash within hours. Ambassador Blackwood, Council Elder Jasmine Rodriguez spoke, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "You understand what we're asking of you?" Raven nodded, running a hand through his short black hair. At 32, he was the youngest senior diplomat in Earth's history, known for resolving the Mars colony crisis through unconventional negotiations. But this was different. This was personal. "I'm to marry First Sentinel Naira Kveth of the Zytherian Empire," he said, the words feeling strange on his tongue. "To seal an alliance between our peoples." The council chamber fell silent. Through the vast windows, Earth's orbital defense platforms looked like distant stars, useless against the superior Zytherian technology. 3 months of failed negotiations had led to this moment, a final chance at peace through an ancient Zytherian tradition. Elder Marcus Thorne cleared his throat. The Zytherians believe in biological compatibility as the foundation of their alliances. Their scientists have discovered something unique about human DNA that makes us valuable to them. Raven had read the classified reports. Human genetic material contained sequences that could potentially stabilize the degrading Zytherian genome. Their species had achieved technological marvels, but paid for it with genetic manipulation that was now threatening their survival. "And First Sentinel Kveth?" Raven asked. "What do we know about her?" A new hologram appeared, showing a tall, elegant figure with iridescent silver skin and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies within them. Naira Kveth wore ceremonial armor that highlighted her athletic build, while ornate markings across her face indicated her noble status. "She's their finest warrior and a member of their ruling house," explained Elder Thorne. "She personally chose you after reviewing Earth's diplomatic corps records. Something about your negotiation style impressed her." Raven remembered the Mars talks, how he'd challenged traditional diplomatic protocols and insisted on living among the colonists to truly understand their grievances. "She values immersion and understanding other cultures," he realized aloud. "Precisely," Elder Rodriguez confirmed. "But Raven, you need to understand, this isn't just a political marriage. The Zytherians take their bond marriages seriously. Their cultural expectations. I've studied their customs," Raven interrupted gently. "I know that marriage for them is a deep psychological and physiological bond. Their scientists believe they can adapt their bonding process to work with human biology." What he didn't say was how fascinated he'd become with Zytherian culture during his research. Their blend of advanced technology and ancient traditions, their complex honor systems, and their unwavering dedication to their chosen paths, it all resonated with something deep within him. The next few days passed in a blur of preparations. Raven underwent genetic compatibility tests, learned the intricate protocols of Zytherian court behavior, and recorded final messages for his family. His younger sister Lyra had taken the news hard, but eventually understood the importance of his choice. The day of first contact arrived with the precision typical of Zytherians. A single shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, landing on the specially prepared platform outside the diplomatic corps headquarters. Raven stood at attention, wearing the formal black and silver robes that Earth's finest designers had created to honor Zytherian aesthetic preferences. The shuttle's door opened with a soft hiss, releasing a shimmer of atmospheric adjustment particles. First Sentinel Naira Kveth emerged, and Raven's breath caught in his throat. The holograms hadn't done her justice. She moved with liquid grace, each step precisely measured. Her armor, which had appeared ceremonial in images, now revealed itself as functional art, shifting and adapting to her movements while maintaining its breathtaking beauty. But it was her eyes that captured Raven's attention. They weren't just galaxy-like in appearance. They seemed to hold the same depth of mystery and potential. "Ambassador Blackwood," she spoke, her universal translator adding a musical quality to her words. "I am honored by your acceptance of our proposal." Raven stepped forward and performed the traditional Zytherian greeting, his right hand moving in the complex pattern he'd practiced hundreds of times. "The honor is mine, First Sentinel Kveth. Your presence brings light to our world." A subtle shift in her expression, a slight softening around those magnificent eyes, told him he'd performed the gesture correctly. But what followed surprised him. "You may call me Naira," she said, breaking from the formal script. "If we are to be bonded, we should begin building trust now." Raven felt the weight of the council's gaze behind him, but he focused solely on Naira. Then I am Raven to you, and I look forward to learning your ways. Your reputation for cultural immersion precedes you, Naira said, taking another step closer. But I must warn you, there are aspects of our society that may challenge your human perspectives. Are you prepared for that? There was something in her tone, a hint of concern perhaps, that made Raven wonder what she wasn't saying. But he had committed to this path, to this chance to save both their peoples. I am prepared to face those challenges, he replied firmly, and to learn from them. Naira's expression remained neutral, but Raven caught a flicker of something in those stellar eyes, approval, perhaps, or relief. Then let us proceed with the initial bonding ceremony. Your council has prepared the designated chamber. The following hours were a carefully choreographed dance of diplomatic protocols and ancient Scytherian rituals. Raven felt the first tendrils of the psychic bond the moment Naira's fingers touched his temples, a warm, curious presence at the edges of his consciousness. What no one had prepared him for was the sudden flash of vision, a vast chamber of crystalline architecture, 3 other figures with the same sterling skin as Naira, their eyes filled with different colors of starlight, and a sense of ancient power thrumming through it all. When the contact broke, Raven steadied himself against a nearby pillar. Naira watched him with an unreadable expression. You saw them, didn't you? She asked softly. My sisters. And in that moment, Raven realized that everything he thought he knew about this arrangement was just the surface of a much deeper pool. He was about to dive into waters whose depths he couldn't begin to fathom. But as he looked into Naira's star-filled eyes, he knew one thing with certainty: there would be no turning back. The Scytherian royal palace defied Earth's architectural concepts. Structures of living crystal grew and shifted like breathing organisms, creating corridors that whispered with ancient songs. Raven followed Naira through these ever-changing passages, trying to memorize their patterns while maintaining his diplomatic composure. The crystal responds to our biorhythms, Naira explained, her silver hand trailing along a wall that hummed beneath her touch. It will learn your presence too, once the full bonding is complete. Raven noticed how the crystal seemed to shy away from his human touch, dulling slightly where his fingers met its surface. And when will that be? After you meet my sisters. Naira paused before an archway that sparkled with embedded stardust. There is something you must understand about our customs, Raven. Something your council may not have fully comprehended. The archway opened into a vast chamber that took Raven's breath away. A dome ceiling reflected the light of 3 moons, creating an aurora of colors that danced across the floor. But it was the 3 figures waiting within that commanded his attention. They stood in a perfect triangle formation, each as distinct as the moons above. The first, tall and athletic like Naira, wore armor that seemed to be made of captured starlight. The second was shorter, draped in robes that shifted colors with each movement, her skin bearing more elaborate markings than her sister's. The third stood perfectly still, her simple attire belying an intensity that Raven could feel across the room. My sisters, Naira announced. Lyra Kveth, first blade of the Imperial Guard. The warrior in starlight armor inclined her head. Celine Kveth, keeper of ancient knowledge. The robed figure smiled mysteriously. And Vega Kveth, master of shadow operations. The quiet one's eyes locked onto Raven with unsettling precision. Welcome, Earthborn. Lyra spoke first, her voice carrying the same musical quality as Naira's. We have watched your negotiations with great interest. Raven performed the traditional greeting for each sister, noting how their responses varied. Lyra's was crisp and military, Celine's fluid and elaborate, Vega's minimal but precise. In Scytherian culture, Celine began, her robes rippling like liquid moonlight. Marriage bonds are not merely between 2 individuals. They are connections between souls, between bloodlines, between destinies intertwined. When one of noble blood takes a mate, Vega continued, speaking for the first time, that mate becomes bound to the entire noble house. It ensures the strength and continuity of our genetic lines. Raven's diplomatic training kicked in, helping him maintain his composure as the implications became clear. You're saying that my marriage to Naira will bind you to all of us, Lyra confirmed. Not in the primitive sense your people might assume. The bond is deeper, more complex. It is a sharing of essence, of purpose, of destiny. The crystal walls seemed to pulse with the weight of this revelation. Raven's mind raced through the possibilities, the complications, the potential diplomatic ramifications. But something else stirred within him, a curiosity about these fascinating beings and their ancient ways. The bond manifests differently with each sister, Celine explained, moving closer. Her robes left trails of light in the air. With Naira, you will share strength and leadership. With me, knowledge and wisdom. With Lyra, battle prowess and strategy. With Vega, secrets and shadows. And if I refuse? Raven asked, though he already suspected the answer. Then the alliance fails, Vega stated simply. And both our worlds suffer the consequences. Naira stepped forward, her presence somehow both reassuring and commanding. We do not ask this lightly, Raven. Our species stands at a crossroads. The genetic degradation that threatens us, it accelerates with each generation. Human DNA holds the key to our salvation, but it must be introduced through the sacred bonds of marriage. Anything else would be dishonorable, Lyra finished. And honor is everything to our people. Raven watched as the sisters moved in perfect synchronization, forming a circle around him. The crystal floor beneath his feet began to glow, responding to their combined presence. There is more at stake than politics, Celine said softly. More than genetics or alliances. The ancient prophecies speak of a time when the children of distant stars would join their blood with ours, bringing forth a new age of enlightenment. Your council chose you for your adaptability, your understanding of foreign cultures, Vega observed. But we chose you for something else, something we sensed in your spirit. The circle tightened slightly, and Raven felt the first whispers of their combined mental presence, for distinct consciousnesses brushing against his own. It was overwhelming yet strangely compelling. This is only a taste of what the full bond will be like, Naira explained. Each sister's essence will become part of you, as yours becomes part of us. It is not mere marriage, Raven. It is transformation. The implications were staggering. Raven had prepared himself for a political marriage, for cultural adjustments, even for the genetic aspects of their union. But this was beyond anything in Earth's diplomatic protocols. How long do I have to decide? He asked, though part of him already knew he would accept. The diplomat in him recognized the necessity, but something deeper, something he couldn't quite name, drew him toward this strange and beautiful destiny. Until moonset, Lyra answered. When the 3 moons align, the bonding must begin, or the opportunity will pass. Raven looked at each sister in turn, Naira with her warrior's pride and hidden depths, Lyra with her stellar armor and fierce dedication, Celine with her ancient wisdom and fluid grace, Vega with her shadowed power and penetrating gaze. If I accept, he said carefully, I need to know one thing. Will I still be myself? Or will this transformation erase who I am? The sisters exchanged looks that seemed to carry entire conversations. Finally, Celine spoke. The bond enhances. It does not erase. You will be more than you are now, but you will still be Raven Blackwood. That is why we chose you, because your essence is strong enough to remain distinct even when joined with ours. As if in response to her words, the crystal chamber's light shifted, creating a spectral display that mimicked the double helix of DNA, but with strands of light that seemed to dance between human and Zytherian patterns. The choice must be yours, Naira said softly. Freely given, or the bond will fail. Raven took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 2 civilizations resting on his decision. But beneath that pressure, there was something else, a sense of rightness, of destiny, of stepping into a role he had been unknowingly preparing for his entire life. I accept, he said, his voice steady. Not just for Earth, not just for the Alliance, but for the truth I see in your eyes and the future I feel in this bond. The crystal chamber erupted in symphonic resonance, and the sisters' circle became a spiral of light and energy. As the transformation began, Raven caught a glimpse of something in Vega's eyes, a flash of emotion that didn't quite match the solemnity of the moment. But before he could process it, the bond took hold, and his world dissolved into starlight. 3 lunar cycles had passed since the bonding ceremony, and Raven was still adjusting to the changes within himself. The genetic transformation had enhanced his physical capabilities, while the psychic bonds with the sisters filled his mind with newfound knowledge and awareness. But lately, something felt wrong in the crystalline passages of the palace. He stood in the military command center with Lyra, watching holographic displays of troop movements along the Empire's borders. His connection to her had given him an innate understanding of Zytherian battle tactics, though he sometimes struggled with the flood of strategic information. The rebel factions are growing bolder, Lyra observed, her starlight armor rippling with concern. 3 attacks on genetic research facilities in the past week alone. They oppose the human alliance, Raven said, not as a question. Through his bond with Vega, he had glimpsed shadows of dissent moving through the Empire's political undercurrents. They opposed change of any kind. Lyra's fingers danced through the holographic display, highlighting attack patterns. But these strikes feel coordinated, as if guided by someone with intimate knowledge of our security protocols. A chill ran down Raven's spine as he remembered the strange incidents of the past weeks. The mysterious malfunction in the palace's environmental systems that had nearly exposed him to toxic Cytherian atmosphere. The training simulation that had inexplicably switched from practice mode to lethal settings. The corrupted data in his personal genetic monitoring suite. Someone's testing me, he realized aloud. Probing for weaknesses. Lyra's expression hardened. You suspect internal interference? Before he could respond, Celine swept into the room, her color-shifting robes more subdued than usual. The ancient archives were accessed last night, she announced without preamble. Someone was searching through prophecies related to human Cytherian hybridization. Raven felt a pulse of concern through his bond with Naira, who was currently off-world leading a military campaign. The four-way connection with the sisters had grown stronger over time, allowing them to share emotions and surface thoughts across vast distances. What exactly were they looking for? He asked Celine. The cipher of transformation, she replied, her normally serene features troubled. A text that speaks of genetic keys hidden within alien bloodlines. But the section they accessed most heavily dealt with potential complications of the bonding process. Raven's enhanced senses picked up the subtle shift in Lyra's stance, a warrior's instinct responding to threat. What kind of complications? Rejection phenomena. Genetic instability. In some cases. Celine hesitated, complete biological breakdown of the hybrid subject. The implications hung heavy in the air. Raven reached out through the bond, seeking Vega's presence, but found her mental signature strangely muted. Where's Vega? She should hear this. Running surveillance on suspected rebel sympathizers within the noble houses, Lyra answered. She's been distant lately. Raven had noticed that too. Of all the sisters, Vega's thoughts were the hardest to read through the bond, often shrouded in layers of mental discipline. But recently, she had become almost completely opaque to him. A soft chime interrupted their discussion. Raven's genetic monitoring suite signaling its daily analysis was complete. He accessed the results through his neural interface and froze. My genetic stability is declining, he said quietly. The hybridization process is starting to break down. Celine moved closer, her robes rippling with agitation. That's impossible. The bonding was successful. All indicators showed perfect integration. Unless, Lyra's voice took on a dangerous edge, someone is deliberately interfering with the process. Through their shared bond, Raven felt Naira's immediate response. A surge of protective fury followed by tactical calculation. Her thoughts merged with his, reviewing recent events through their combined perspective. The accidents, he said slowly. They weren't just tests. They were attempts to stress my system, to accelerate genetic breakdown. Celine's hands moved in complex patterns, activating ancient symbols embedded in her robes. There are ways to stabilize the hybridization, treatments hidden in the oldest archives. But we need time. Time may be what we don't have, Lyra growled. If the rebels have infiltrated the palace itself. A sudden wave of dizziness hit Raven, and he steadied himself against a crystal column. The palace's living architecture responded to his distress, shifting colors in warning patterns. The last person to access my genetic monitoring suite, he managed through the disorientation. Who was it? Lyra accessed the security logs, her expression darkening. The credentials used belonged to Vega. The revelation hit Raven like a physical blow, reverberating through his bonds with the sisters. He felt Naira's shock, Celine's disbelief, Lyra's rage. But underneath it all was something else, a memory of that strange flash in Vega's eyes during the bonding ceremony. We need to find her, he said, pushing through another wave of dizziness. But first, tell me everything you know about the cipher of transformation. What aren't you telling me about these prophecies? Celine exchanged a look with Lyra, then spoke carefully. The prophecies speak of two possible outcomes when the Star Children join with our blood. In one, the union brings renaissance, a rebirth of both species into something greater. In the other, catastrophic genetic collapse that could spread through both populations, Lyra finished grimly. The prophecies are unclear about what determines the outcome, but they mention a choice, a moment of truth when all hangs in balance. Raven felt Naira's thoughts aligning with his own. Vega believes she's preventing the catastrophe by stopping the hybridization process. But what if her interference is what causes it? The crystal walls pulsed with warning light as another wave of genetic instability swept through him. Time was running out, and somewhere in the palace's shifting corridors, a sister who had sworn to share his destiny was working to destroy it. Through the haze of mounting physical distress, Raven clung to one certainty. The bond he shared with the sisters was more than mere genetics or politics. It was a bridge between worlds, a key to survival for both species, and he would fight to protect it, even if that meant confronting the shadows that lurked in Vega's heart. "We need to move quickly," he said, straightening despite the pain. "Naira's returning to the palace, but she won't arrive in time. Whatever Vega's planning, it's happening soon. And we need to understand the true nature of these prophecies before we face her." The crystal chamber hummed with tension as Lyra and Selene moved to support him, their combined strength flowing through the bond. Above them, the three moons of Zytheria aligned once more, just as they had on the night of his transformation. But this time, instead of promise, their light held warning. The time of choice was approaching, and the fate of two species would hang in the balance. Deep within the ancient archives, Raven and Selene pored over crystalline tablets containing the original prophecies. His condition was deteriorating rapidly, silver patches appearing on his skin, neural pathways misfiring, but his enhanced mind could still process the ancient Zytherian script. "There," he said, pointing to a complex glyph sequence. "We've been reading it wrong. The prophecy doesn't speak of two possible outcomes. It describes two necessary phases." Selene leaned closer, her robes casting prismatic patterns across the tablets. Genetic breakdown followed by reconstruction. The catastrophe isn't something to be prevented. It's part of the process, Raven finished. Through their bond, he felt Lyra's sudden understanding as she guarded the archive entrance. Like a chrysalis breaking down before transformation, a slow clap echoed through the chamber. "Very good, Brother Bond." Vega emerged from the shadows, her simple attire now bearing the marks of the rebel faction. "But you're still missing the larger truth." Lyra's starlight armor flared as she raised her weapon, but Vega made no aggressive moves. Instead, she touched a hidden panel, revealing a secret archive section. "The complete prophecy," she said softly. "The part our ancestors hid because they feared its implications." The hidden tablets showed images that made Raven's transformed blood run cold. Ancient Zytherians, far different from their current form. Genetic manipulation on a massive scale. And other species, dozens of them, each bonded and transformed over millennia. "We weren't the first," he realized. "Your people have done this before." "Many times," Vega confirmed. "Each new species brought temporary salvation, their genetic material stabilizing our degrading genome. But eventually, the pattern would begin again, because we never addressed the root cause." Through the bond, Raven felt Naira's spacecraft entering the atmosphere, her mind racing to process these revelations. Selene's thoughts were a whirlwind of connections as centuries of historical anomalies suddenly made sense. "The genetic degradation isn't natural," Selene whispered. "It's artificial, built into our species by our own ancestors." "A failsafe," Vega nodded. "To ensure we would always seek out new genetic material, new species to bond with. To force us to continue evolving, expanding, transforming. Humanity isn't our salvation, Raven. You're just the latest in a long line of temporary solutions." Another wave of genetic instability hit him, stronger than before. The silver patches on his skin were spreading, and his neural connection to the sisters flickered like a failing light. "But why?" Lyra demanded, her weapon still trained on Vega. "Why would our ancestors do this to us?" "Because they saw something coming." Vega touched another panel, revealing the final tablets. "A threat so vast, so ancient, that only continuous evolution could prepare us to face it." They believed that genetic stagnation was a greater danger than forced transformation. Raven stepped closer to the tablets, his enhanced vision picking out details in the cosmic patterns depicted there. "These show something moving between galaxies. Something that consumes genetic potential." "The Devourers," Vega said grimly. "That's what the oldest texts call them. They seek out species that have reached genetic stability and harvest them. Our ancestors found evidence of their passing. Entire civilizations reduced to biological uniformity, stripped of their evolutionary potential." Through their bond, Raven felt Naira landing at the palace, her mind joining fully with their shared consciousness. The four-way connection surged with combined realization. The rebels, Raven said, understanding dawning. They don't oppose the human alliance. They oppose the cycle of temporary solutions. We want to break the pattern, Vega confirmed. The genetic breakdown you're experiencing. I accelerated it. Yes, but not to destroy you. To force us all to confront the truth and find a real solution. Celine's robes swirled with agitation. But the breakdown is killing him. Whatever your intentions, sister, you've condemned him. No, Raven said suddenly, his transformed mind making connections faster than human thought. She's given us an opportunity. The accelerated breakdown means we can observe the entire process more clearly. And with the complete prophecy, we can potentially guide the reconstruction phase, Celine caught his meaning. Instead of just surviving it, we could direct it, create something entirely new. Naira burst into the chamber, her presence completing their circle. But instead of attacking Vega, she stared at the revealed tablets with growing comprehension. The bond itself is the key, Naira said. Not just between one human and four Zytherians, but the principle of genetic sharing. If we could extend it to both our species, Raven nodded, fighting through another wave of pain. Not selective breeding or limited hybridization. A true merger of potential, voluntary transformation for any who choose it. Vega's expression softened for the first time. The rebels have geneticists, researchers who've studied the ancient methods, together with your Earth scientists. We could transform the transformation itself, Celine finished. Break the cycle of dependency while preserving the drive to evolve. The crystal archive hummed with power as the five of them stood in a circle, their minds linked through the bond. Raven felt his cells continuing to break down, but now he understood it wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The choice the prophecy speaks of, he said through gritted teeth, it's not about preventing catastrophe or embracing it. It's about what we create from the breakdown. Nair stepped forward, taking his hand. Silver patches on his skin resonated with her touch. Then let us choose together, all of us. Not as separate species seeking temporary salvation, but as architects of a new way forward, Vega completed the thought. The archive's crystals began to sing with harmonic frequencies as Raven's transformation entered its final phase. Around him, the four sisters joined hands, their combined genetic knowledge and ancient wisdom flowing through the bond. As his consciousness began to fade into the chrysalis state, Raven saw through their shared vision a glimpse of what they might become, something neither human nor Zytherian, but a bridge between stars, an answer to ancient questions, and perhaps, finally, a species ready to face the Devourer's inevitable arrival. The prophecy's final words shimmered in his failing vision. From the ashes of what was, to the crucible of choice, rises what must be. Then the chrysalis took him, and the true transformation began. Light years away, in the depths of space, something stirred. Ancient sensors, placed by long-forgotten Zytherian ancestors, detected a ripple in the cosmic fabric, the first tremors of approaching harvesters. But on the Imperial homeworld, a different kind of awakening was taking place. Raven emerged from the chrysalis chamber after 3 days of transformation. The room's crystalline walls pulsed with new frequencies, resonating with his changed biology. He wasn't alone. The four sisters had undergone the process with him, their bond serving as an anchor through the metamorphosis. Welcome back, Naira said softly, her own transformation evident in the subtle changes to her form. Her silver skin now held traces of human pigmentation, while her stellar eyes had gained earth-sky blues. Raven examined his reflection in a crystal surface. His human features remained recognizable, but now bore elegant Zytherian markings. His eyes held the same galaxy depths as the sisters, and his skin shimmered with a subtle silver sheen. But the most profound changes were invisible to sight. The genetic pathways, Celine observed, her color-shifting robes now incorporating patterns that seemed to move with human DNA helixes. They're nothing like our models predicted. Through their enhanced bond, Raven could sense the wonder in her scientific analysis. The transformation hadn't simply merged human and Zytherian genetics, it had created something entirely new. Something adaptive, resilient, and most importantly, stable. The degradation factors are gone, Lyra confirmed, her starlight armor now integrated seamlessly with her transformed biology. But the capacity for continued evolution remains. Vega, who had shed her rebel attire for robes that combined both cultural styles, stepped forward with a data crystal. Reports are coming in from the research facilities. The process is reproducible. Voluntary transformation chambers are already under construction in major cities on both worlds. The news sparked a wave of shared emotion through their five-way bond. Hope, excitement, and underneath it all, a steady determination. Because they all knew this was just the beginning. Earth's governments have approved the joint declaration, Raven said, accessing the diplomatic updates through his enhanced neural interface. The alliance of transformed peoples will be officially recognized by both species. And the rebels? Naira asked, turning to Vega. Most have joined our cause, Vega replied. Once they understood the truth about the Devourers, they saw that this transformation isn't just another temporary solution, it's preparation for the real battle ahead. Raven moved to the chamber's central console, activating a galactic display. Countless points of light represented worlds where other species might choose to join their transformation alliance. Not through conquest or desperation, but through informed choice and willing partnership. The ancient sensors are active, Celine reported, her enhanced senses interpreting data streams that would have been incomprehensible before. The Devourers are still decades away, but their course is clear. They're coming. Let them come, Lyra said with quiet confidence. We'll be ready. Through their shared consciousness, Raven felt the truth of those words. The transformation had given them more than stable genetics or enhanced capabilities. It had shown them a new way of existence, one that celebrated diversity while fostering unity, that preserved individual identity within collective strength. There's something else, he said, sensing a new pattern in the data streams. The transformation. It's still ongoing. Subtle changes, adaptations, possibilities unfolding. Naira nodded. The prophecy spoke of what must be, not an end state, but a continuous journey. A journey we'll share with any who choose to join us, Celine added. Each new species bringing their own unique contributions to our collective evolution. The crystal chamber hummed with harmonics as Raven and the sisters joined hands, forming a circle that symbolized their new reality. Through their bond, they could sense the ripples of change spreading across both worlds. Humans and Zytherians choosing transformation, choosing to become part of something greater than themselves. The Devourers seek to harvest genetic potential, Vega mused. But they've never encountered a species that could adapt as quickly as they can consume. A people who chose to keep evolving, who made change itself part of their nature. That's what your ancestors saw, Raven realized. Not just the threat, but the ultimate solution. Not running from the Devourers, not fighting them directly, but becoming something they couldn't predict or control. Above them, through the chamber's transparent ceiling, the three moons of Zytheria aligned with Earth's distant light. The same configuration that had witnessed the beginning of their journey now watched its evolution into something far greater than any of them had imagined. Naira's thoughts merged with Raven's, sharing a vision of the future, transformed ships sailing between stars, carrying the message of choice and change to other worlds. Lyra added tactical perspectives, while Celine contributed deep scientific understanding. Vega's strategic insights completed the picture, showing paths through the challenges ahead. We are neither what we were nor what we will be, Raven said, voicing their shared revelation. We are the bridge between past and future, between fixed forms and infinite potential. The crystal walls sang with new frequencies as their five-way bond resonated with this truth. They had started as representatives of two species seeking salvation through alliance. They had become something else, pioneers of a new way of being, guardians of evolution itself. In the vast darkness between galaxies, the Devourers continued their ancient harvest, unaware that their next meal was becoming something unprecedented. By the time they arrived, they would find not a feast of genetic potential waiting to be consumed, but a transformed humanity ready to show them that adaptation, not consumption, was the true path to the stars. Raven looked at his transformed family, Naira with her warrior's heart now tempered by human empathy, Lyra whose tactical brilliance had gained creative flexibility, Celine whose ancient knowledge now danced with new possibilities, and Vega whose shadows had become a source of strength rather than secrecy. Together, they stepped out of the transformation chamber and into the light of their new dawn. Above them, the stars seemed to shine with fresh purpose, as if recognizing that their light now fell on something extraordinary, a people who had chosen to embrace change itself as their truest nature. The prophecy had been fulfilled, but not ended. Their story, like their evolution, would continue. And somewhere in the cosmic depths, the Devourers moved ever closer, unaware that their next harvest would become their greatest lesson. The age of transformation had begun,